Hello, I'm Rachel from Douentza Garden in Ireland, and it's that time of year again. Time to pot up bulbs for pot displays next year. And I was so pleased with how mine did last year that I've decided to repeat the experience. So we're all poised to go here. I have bulbs. I have a box of bulbs there. I have my trusty mix, half mixed. I have my green pots, remember these? So great for tulips, and I'm all ready to go. So today I'm going to pot up tulips for the spring display and also repot my lilies because they did so beautifully last summer. Now the surprise is that this year, instead of orange, because well, I do like my oranges, I've decided to go pink. You are very welcome to this video all about potting up tulips and potting up lilies in preparation for next year's glorious pot displays. And I'll just preamble a little bit by telling you why I grow these bulbs in pots. And I do have tarmac around my house. Tarmac, as we all know, isn't very organic. It's not very pretty, but it is practical. So there's a big area of tarmac and that's right up against the house. So I wanted something up against the house, particularly at the front door, to just kind of soften it a little bit. And in more recent years, I've started growing bulbs in large pots there. And oh my goodness, they have just cheered me up no end. And this is me placing my tulips out. And a couple of viewers commented and they said that of course I'm giving a nod here to the wonderful Klaus Dalby, who's a Danish horticulturalist and has a fantastic YouTube channel. And as we all know, Klaus dons his apron and places his tulips out in spring and has the most magnificent display. I mean, how could we all not be affected by that? And I try in on a much lesser scale than Klaus does, but I was really gratified by the results. Now, this is of course the spring display. Tulips flower in spring, they flower through May and then they're gone. So you do have to have something else there in your pots to carry you through the summer. And I chiefly chose lilies. I had a few other things going on this year, but it was mainly the lilies. And it was just wonderful to have those 2 seasons of brightness. Now, you do know how I love my orange flowers. I usually grow orange tulips and I usually grow them in the ground. I've made a video about which varieties to choose so that they will come back and repeat flower, because it is a bit of a tricky business. However, for the purposes of pots, you can just go all out and choose the beautiful varieties because, well, they probably aren't going to last you more than 1 year if you want a full pot display. Anyway, when I saw what Klaus had done this spring and his fantastic displays of mainly pale pink tulips, I was completely besotted. I just thought it was so soft and so really pretty and beautiful. And I said to myself, right, this year, Rachel, you're going to plant pink tulips in your pots as well. So that's where I'm at, and this is what I'm doing. So I made my order of bulbs and they are chiefly pink. So let's have a look at what I have in here. And the first tulip that I've bought is this one called Lady Jane. Now this is a botanic tulip, so you're going to expect smaller bulbs. It's beautiful, it's pink, it's smaller than others might be, and it's in group 15. Now a lot of the botanic tulips will come back year on year. This one not so much because, well, it's just not suited to, I guess, the conditions that I would grow it in here in this part of the world. Look at those funny little bulbs. So different from the big, hyped, well-fed Darwin hybrids that we readily grow. But I bought 20 Lady Jane tulips, and this is going to go in a pot on its own. Of course, I had to buy a few things for the garden, and we have an allium here, and this is the one called, well, you can see what it's called because I certainly can't pronounce it. And the big thing about this allium is that it flowers later in the season. It flowers in June. So a lot of people will have a June gap in their gardens when they have not a lot in flower, and that's when this allium comes into play. So these are going to be planted directly in the ground, not in pots. I also bought some Dutch irises, again not for pots, for the ground, and these will flower in May. Again, hoping sort of kind of after the tulips finish May, and I'm hoping that they are going to fill the gaps in the newly enlarged borders that I made. And yeah, they're going to be super. So this one is a red one called Red Ember. I did like it. I did get a lot. And now we move on to the tulips. And here's my first one. It's called, no, this is another iris. So I bought some white irises too. This one's called Alaska. More irises. Okay, you're probably wondering what happened to these tulips. So this first one is called Light and Dreamy, and it's actually a Darwin hybrid, as far as I recall, which would be explained by the fact that the bulbs are big and meaty, as Darwin hybrids tend to be. Beautiful pale pink colours, and I'm going to put this in a pot. We have another variety called Holland Chic, and this tends to be kind of a less open tulip, so one that's kind of cupped like that. It's a new variety as far as I recall, and when I saw the shades of pink, I just had to have it. It's really, really pretty, really, really pale. You know what? Really, really Klaus Dalby. Again, for a pot. And then we have Fionnuala. Well, it's not Fionnuala. Fionnuala is an Irish name. This is Fionnuala. And this is, it's very open, very pale pink, very feminine, very frilly, very gorgeous. This is the first one I chose and put in my basket because, well, I could not resist. Big bulbs. Going to do fabulously. And then finally, this one called Commons, which, as I recall, is a fringed tulip. And again, pink and white and airy and feathery and feminine and gorgeous. And ooh, what nice big meaty bulbs we have. And these are the tulips that I'm going to be planting up today. Now, you know how I said to you I was going pink this year? Well, I really was, and that's what I ordered. But then I was in a supermarket, and what did I spy? But I spied this fantastic tulip called Lambada, and I will just show you how fantastic those blooms look there. But not only were they fantastic, and you know, I kind of blocked my eye, but they rang a bell for me. And that was because about 10 years ago, I had seen this variety, Lambada, on display in the Botanic Gardens up in Dublin. And it was the most magnificent display ever. So much so that I took lots of photographs. I added the tulip to my wish list and then never found it again for 10 years. But it stayed in my mind. The name stayed in my mind. Mightn't remember faces, but I'll remember a plant. And so when I saw it, I thought, oh my gosh, I can't pass up this opportunity. I do have to buy it. So I bought myself a packet of the Lambada Tulip. And then, well, you know, it's only 8 tulips in the packet. I do have to have something to go with it. So I invested in this tulip called Brisbane, and this is like feathered, and look at it. Isn't it gorgeous? Absolutely gorgeous, and I think it will just go so well with the orange one. Now, wouldn't it be just fantastic if the orange ones flowered at a slightly different time to the pink one? But you know what? Even if they don't, I think pink and orange look quite well together. Some people may disagree, but I certainly like them. I can't stand, say, for example, pink and yellow, but pink and orange, yeah, that rocks my boat. And then just to let you know, although I probably won't do it on camera today, I have my hyacinths, which I have kept in pots for a few years. This is the variety called Gypsy Queen, and they're due a repot, and I will be doing that today, even if off camera. And here is my mix. Now, I have made a video before about how to pot up tulips, and in that video I talk about the fact that you need to have a mix that's 3 parts potting compost and 1 part something to aerate it a bit. In this case I'm using quite a coarse grit, but you can use finer grit, which is horticultural sand. You could even use perlite or vermiculite, however that might prove quite expensive. And I'm just going to mix this around here and get rid of all the lumps. Now, the great thing about tulips is that those bulbs already have all the information and all the wherewithal to produce flowers. So they don't require a really good or really nutritious compost. Anything will do really, as long as it's free draining. And so after a good bit of mixing, here we go. And now I'm going to pot up the first of my tulips. And this pot I find so excellent because it's deep, and you do need something relatively deep for tulips. So you need to put mix or compost at the base of the pot, and it should measure 3 times the tulip's height. Now we're going to pot up my Finola tulips. So that's what it looks like. And so 1, 2, 3. I need to have potting mix to about there on the pot. Now I place the tulips in. And tulips, when they're potted, you can leave as little as a finger's width between them. Now we put mix on top. And you're going to bury your tulips to another 3 times their height. But this is important. You need to make sure that you leave about 1 inch, which is about 3 centimeters, between the top of the compost mix and the top of the pot. And that'll just allow you to water them properly. If you fill it higher than that, then you probably end up not giving your plants enough water because you'll be afraid of them overflowing. So that's one of the Finola done, and now let's do the second pot, and just the same procedure. Compost at the bottom. Actually, I'm going to try out a little something that I was told about. Now, apparently the flattest side of the bulb, which is going to be here, is going to produce the biggest leaf, and it makes a neater display if that's at the edge of the pot. So we are going to put the flatter sides out, and I will let you know how that works out. Well, in fact, you're going to see it anyway with my pot display. So here we have 2 identical pots. This one has Tulip Finola planted with her flat side to the outside of the pot, and this one has Tulip Finola planted just any which way, and we'll see how that works out. So next up we have the fantastic Holland Chic. Well, I do hope it is going to be fantastic, and just exactly the same procedure. Let's go with flat side out. And the last two green pots accompanied by rain. I wanted you to hear that rain falling on the greenhouse roof. So in we go. A little bit more. And we're going to plant these tulips with the flat side out. I wonder actually, does it work better with, you know, more upright tulips than the double types that open? It mightn't be so clear to see with them. Anyway, we've taken Finola as our example, so we'll stick with that. Now when I water these, I may have to top up the mix a bit, because when it settles, it can kind of drop a bit low. Okay, so now moving on to bigger pots, and I'm just going to have a little look here at what I have left. So there are alliums and irises. We don't want them. So I have the Lady Jane, which is the species one. 20 bulbs, but they are really small. And I'm wondering if that pot is too big. I also have 10 Light and Dreamy, which is a Darwin hybrid. So usually big tulips, big meaty tulips. And I have the 2 orange ones. Now, do you know what? I think I'm going to break one of Klaus Dalby's rules here, and I'm going to plant 2 types of tulips in this very dirty pot. And the advantage of planting tulips singly is to, well, you have more flexibility in where you can put them, because you only have one type in each pot. However, I don't have gallons of pots to play around with. Those were my small deep pots. Maybe I should get some more, but I don't have any for the moment. So I now have a lot of large clay pots like this. And I think, you know, I've only got 8 of the Lambada and 8 of this, so they would look a bit lost in there. So we're going to mix these 2 together and hope that they flower at roughly the same time. Which is the tallest? I should put the tallest in the middle, shouldn't I? 50 centimeters and 30 centimeters. Really? Only 30 centimeters tall? I'm surprised. So we'll put the Lambada in the middle, since it's supposedly 50 centimeters tall. So those are the Lambada. And do you see the skin on the outside of the tulip? You should never take that off. That's called the tunic, and it serves a purpose to protect the tulip. Sometimes they do come off of their own accord, but yeah, they should still be okay. And I'm putting the Brisbane then, the shorter ones, around the edge of the pot like this. Move over. Oh, I forgot to do my flat surface bit. Okay, so I can't find an empty pot that's the right size for the species tulip at Lady Jane. But instead I'm going to reuse the pot that's here on my Regal Lilies. I think these are Regal Lilies, because I'm going to repot them anyway. So let's just take the lilies out, which is kind of what's going to happen with them anyway in a little while, and use the pot for Lady Jane. Come on, out. Let's cut off the top. Bet this doesn't happen to Klaus Dalby. Bet he has all the pots. need a knife. And this is my trusted Hori. So good in the garden. And handy for getting lilies out too, apparently. Now, you can repot lilies either in spring or in autumn, as I'm doing now. Okay, one pot for tulips. So we're going to just put the compost at the base of the pot like this to 3 times the tulip's height. In the case of these ones, that isn't very high at all, but they won't suffer from that. They won't suffer from the fact that there is more compost at the base. And here are the tulips. Let's just drop them in here for the moment. Paying attention to put the basal plate down and the pointy side up. It's a bit difficult to tell which is the flat side of the tulip here, so I think we'll just go with whatever we can do. Light and dreamy. And then, of course, it's important to give your tulips a good watering, making sure that the water goes all the way down and comes out the base of the pot. Don't concentrate on just one spot that you might blast the compost away. And now it's time to talk about lilies. And I grow a number of different species of lilies in pots, hybrids as well, one of which is the regal lily you just saw me unceremoniously unpot just a minute ago, and that was because I wanted to use its pot for the tulips. But now is a great time of year for repotting lilies, for dividing lilies, for planting lilies out, or, well, refreshing their compost. Now, in this particular case, the lily has been very rudely decanted and it needs to go into another pot regardless. You can see that there is a dense root ball. Now, if I wanted to divide this lily, I would have to dig in there. I would have to destroy most of the roots to get at the bulbs themselves, and that's okay. If that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do. But in this case, I think I won't bother. I think what I'll do is to just put it in a slightly bigger pot and to replenish the topsoil. So the first thing we need to do really here is to just kind of remove any medium that I can get off, which isn't a whole lot, but certainly concentrating on the top of the lily root ball, because that's where we'll be concentrating when we deal with the others. And then we'll talk about our mix. So something like that. Because I'm just repotting this and not dividing it, I'm going to try and maintain the roots. Now, you should know as well that lilies should not be dry stored, because they never go completely dormant. So they are things that need to, well, they need to keep growing the whole time. So I'm going to use the same mix that I used earlier, but lilies are feeders. They're heavy feeders. So I'm going to add some fertilizer in here in the shape of this seaweed fertilizer I've been using a lot recently from Wild Organic Seaweed. Ocean Leaves is the name of the company, and it's called Wild Organic Seaweed. Smells exactly like seaweed, and I'm just going to liberally sprinkle some of that in here in the mix. Now, when potting up lilies, you should use a better compost than you would for the tulips, because they are things that, you know, need feeding. So I've put some of this in here. I'm just going to mix it around a bit on this half of the mix. And I like to put a little bit of grit in with my lilies, just to make sure that the drainage is top notch, because you don't want your lilies rotting. And now with this slightly bigger pot, I'm going to put some of the mix in. And here's my lily bowl. I'm now going to stuff some of the mix down the sides of the pot. And now I'm just going to put a little bit of the mix on top of the lilies. And this is what we're going to do with the rest of my potted collection. Now ideally, as with the tulips, you do want like 3 centimeters or an inch between the top of the compost level and the pot. And now we're going to deal with another lily I've been keeping in a pot. Let's just remove the stakes. As you can see, it has been cut back already. I'm going to take the opportunity to weed it a bit and to just remove what I can from the top in terms of the old spent compost. This lily is illegible. So I'm not going to take this out of the pot at all. I'm just going to refresh the soil. And you can keep lilies in pots for 2 to 3 years. These have been in pots already for 2 years, so I'm hoping to get a 3rd year out of them before I need to radically repot. And then just top up. And of course, if your lilies haven't flowered very well this year, it really is a sign that they need to come out of that pot that they're in and get divided. And repot it if you want to, otherwise put into the ground in the garden. And finally, I'm going to plant up some hyacinths in this beautiful pot that was a gift to me. Do you see it says Douentza garden on it? If I can find out where in the UK my daughter managed to get this, I will post it in the details of this video. And we will just use the mix I mixed for the tulips. So 3 parts ordinary compost, 1 part something gritty, horticultural grit in this case. And I'll just put a bed of compost there, grab my hyacinths, choose the nicest ones. Now normally the rule with planting bulbs is to plant them at 3 times their height, like they need to be 3 times deep the height. Do you get me? So the height is that, so you plant them that deep. However, if they're going to remain in the greenhouse, that really isn't so important. And some of these bulbs are just begging to be divided, so I won't have them beg. So I'm just going to have a glorious little pot display here of a few orange hyacinths that's going to brighten up my greenhouse in spring. It's good to have these things. We need encouragement, us gardeners. Yeah. So just making sure that the bulbs don't touch. You could have it so that they are just proud of the earth, that they stick up, but I'm not going to do that. I'm actually just going to bury them, just barely bury them, and they are going to be a glorious scented presence in the greenhouse in spring in my very fancy pot. I just press the compost down a little bit, making sure not to damage those shoots. And these hyacinths have been in their pot for 2 or 3 years now, and they flowered like every year. I thought I was pushing it a bit this spring. I thought they're not going to flower again. I've left them in the pot without changing the soil for too long, but up they came. So yeah, they're pretty good. Okay, going to give that a water, going to pop it in a sheltered corner in the greenhouse where it's all sheltered. In the cool greenhouse, the one that gets no heat, because they do like cooler temperatures, and they're going to be glorious in spring. And that brings me to the end of this video about next year's pot display. It brings a smile to my face just thinking about it. I do have grubby hands though, so I'll have to go in and wash them. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I would love to hear from you what you are growing for your pot displays next year. Just jot it down below in a comment. I'm always looking for new ideas. The next video, or one of the next videos, will be interesting because you may notice I have this horrible black backdrop which you can see through the greenhouse out there, and yeah, I'm going to do something about that. So stay tuned if you want to know more about that project. Thanks as always for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Bye!